that has done more than the UK in terms of combating climate change.
Well, one thing the government and these protesters are agreed upon is that no single nation can tackle global warming on its own. This is just one of numerous protests being held today around the world, including Montreal, for now the focus of the debate on global warming. John Brain, BBC News.
Well, climate change is also a big challenge for much of the developing world. India is now the 5th biggest producer of greenhouse gases, and as its economy grows, it's expected to produce a lot more. The state of Gujarat is rapidly industrialising. From there, Navdeep Dhariwal has sent this report.
The jewel in India's industrial crown. Gujarat is a state hard at work feeding the country's ferocious appetite for growth. It also accounts for carbon emissions that make India one of the world's biggest polluters.
As you can see from the chimney, they are very clean emissions, and the cause is because of the natural gas being used as fuel.
Girish Luthra is encouraging Gujarat's businesses to go green. This chemical fertilizer factory now uses natural gas and has also changed the way it gets rid of toxic waste.
By changing the technology, we not only save the atmosphere, we also save cost. That is cost of disposal.
But India's drive to success is intensifying demand for more energy. There are few companies exploring alternatives, and it's predicted that in the future, the country will only have a limited supply of fossil fuels.
One reason why renewable energy isn't being used on a large scale is that it can be more expensive than sticking to conventional fuels. The Indian government doesn't offer companies many incentives or subsidies, and India internationally has made no binding commitment to reduce emissions.
But the country is being forced to face the impact of climate change. Shanti Lal has just finished clearing up after record rainfalls wrecked the dream retirement home he'd spent a lifetime saving up for.
There were rains all over the place. In America there were floods, in Andhra Pradesh, in Madras. I don't think the authorities can do anything to stop this freak weather.
Gujarat is also struggling with acute water shortages. The poor are bearing the brunt of these changes. Experts warn India's race to development won't lift its people out of poverty unless it faces up to its environmental responsibilities. Navdeep Dhariwal, BBC News, Gujarat.
Finance ministers of the G7 group of big industrial nations met in London today and called for progress in global trade talks later this month. The Chancellor, Gordon Brown, wants the European Union to reform its farm policy, which is one stumbling block to a trade deal. He even invited some non-G7 countries to the meeting to boost the case for change. Here's our economics editor, Evan Davis.
Another day, another international meeting, but the same old argument gets in the way. The French, represented by Thierry Breton, don't want more reform of European farm policy. Gordon Brown for the British does. All week, the argument over agriculture's dominated the row over the EU budget. Today, it dominated discussion on a second front, world trade. Countries like Brazil object to European farm policy. So guess what? Mr. Brown, who was hosting today's summit, invited Brazil along. Shook hands, all to add pressure on the French.
Can I say we've had an excellent meeting of ministers this morning, and we've been discussing the trade talks. We believe there is some urgency in moving forward the trade talks.
Brown's unlikely new buddy, the Brazilian finance minister. In the morning, Brazil even made a small trade concession. But the French, they were not going to let that intimidate them.
Maybe a change, but I can tell you by experience that between a change and a progress, sometimes there is a gap. So we'll see. The negotiator will have to negotiate.
Clearly, there's a lot of talking to be done. Today's meeting was just a warm-up act for the really big show that takes place in Hong Kong in 10 days' time. That's when 149 countries gather for a week of global trade talks. All the signs are, though, a week won't be long enough to bridge the divide over European farm policy. Evan Davis, BBC News, at the G7 Finance Ministers meeting.
Now with news of an England collapse in the cricket and the rest of the day's sport, here's Mary Rose. Mary?
Thanks very much indeed, Dan. Good evening. England's cricketers have lost the third and final test against Pakistan and the series 2-0. After being 201 for 2 at lunch, England collapsed to 248 all out, losing by an innings and 100 runs. Joe Wilson reports from Lahore.
The Gaddafi Stadium is not the Oval, nor is it Trafalgar Square, but the sense of achievement here for Pakistan matched anything enjoyed by England in the summer. The strange part is that the morning session was sedate, with Collingwood and Bell batting on untroubled. But lunch was followed by the collapse to end all collapses. Collingwood first to fall to Canaria. Peterson did not hang around long. Flintoff misread the turn out first ball.
With a beauty, would you believe it? He's on fire.
When the defiant Ian Bell was undone by the Akhtar slower ball, 4 big wickets had fallen in 15 minutes. From there, the demise was hastened a little by the umpiring, Jones out LBW when the ball clearly hit his bat. But the fighting spirit had disappeared, and with it, so had the series.
That's the end.
Throughout the whole series, I think, if we're totally honest, they've played the better cricket than we have. You can look back at Multan and say, yeah, we could have won that game, but throughout a 3-match series, Pakistan have put us under more pressure than we have put them under.
Well, England arrived here on the back of the biggest cricketing high for a generation. 1 month on, and the players who look like world beaters are all Pakistan's. Joe Wilson, BBC News, Lahore.
Well, all the goals and highlights from today's Premiership games are coming up on Match of the Day. That's straight after the news. But here are the results. Liverpool have notched up their 6th straight Premiership win, beating Wigan 3-0. Peter Crouch's long wait for his first goal for Liverpool is over. Bolton enjoyed a 2-0 home victory over Arsenal. Stelios Giannakopoulos with the second. And Manchester United finished an emotional week with a 3-0 win over Portsmouth. Paul Scholes scored the opener. Elsewhere, Everton's revival continues with a 2-0 victory over Blackburn. Chelsea picked up another win, beating Middlesbrough 1-0. Newcastle and Aston Villa shared the points. Spurs came from behind to beat Sunderland 3-2. West Brom and Fulham played out a goalless draw. So, Chelsea stay top, 10 points clear of Man United. Liverpool have moved up into third, and Arsenal have dropped back behind Spurs. Harry Redknapp has left Southampton after just a year in charge of the club, paving the way for a return to his former side and South Coast rivals Portsmouth. Redknapp said it was impossible for him to come back to Southampton after the club refused him permission to talk to Portsmouth about the vacant manager's job there. Well, one of the other names that's been linked with the job at Portsmouth is the Rangers manager Alex McLeish. His side have been struggling in the Scottish Premier League, and today they lost a 2-goal lead to draw with Falkirk. Elsewhere, Dundee United beat Hibs 1-0. Dunfermline lost at home to Kilmarnock by the same score. Hearts are top of the table after a 2-1 win over Livingston, and Motherwell lost 2-0 to Inverness Caledonian Thistle. Bath are through to the semi-finals of Rugby Union's Powergen Cup after they beat Gloucester by 21 points to 12 at the Recreation Ground. And Leicester are also through to the last 4. They came from behind to beat Northampton at Welford Road. 3 second-half tries helped them to a 29-16 victory. Finally, tennis, and Croatia are just 1 victory away from winning their first ever Davis Cup title. They beat Slovakia in today's doubles to take a 2-1 lead in Bratislava. And that's all from me for tonight. Darren.
Mary, thank you for that. And you can see more on all of today's stories on BBC News 24, including coverage of how thousands in Belfast paid tribute to the footballer George Best. But for now, from Mary and from me, good night.
Good evening. Well, it's proving to be one of those weekends. If you're lucky, you stay dry. If you're unlucky, you see shower after shower after shower. Tomorrow, probably rather fewer showers, so a better chance of staying dry. Tonight, very mixed indeed. Fair amount of cloud, showers dotted around. Most places escaping a frost, but in 1 or 2 spots where it stays clear, it's going to be touch and go. Chilly start. Where the winds are light, we could see some fog forming. Most likely, western end of the central belt of Scotland. Here that fog could well linger well on into the day, but fog will not be widespread across the UK. Most places escaping. A lot of dry weather inland, as you can see, some sunshine if you're lucky first thing in the morning. Likely to see a line of heavy showers just clipping into Kent for a time before things improve, and another line of showers just funneling up the Bristol Channel towards the Cardiff area. But having said that, on either side, lots of dry weather. There'll be a fair amount of cloud around in Wales, but hopefully that will lift. Some showers across the Irish Sea. Somewhere across Northern Ireland, we'd like to see a line of showers developing, and later on in the day, that'll be feeding into northwestern parts of England. The showers across the far southeast should fade. We'll keep the showers going, though, across eastern Scotland. But out of those regions, plenty of dry weather, and hopefully some sunshine through the afternoon. A lot of sport taking place, of course, and we've got some more FA Cup matches taking place at Worcester, for example. Here at St George's Lane, should stay dry, fair amount of cloud, and you can catch the action live on BBC One. Around about 7 or 8 degrees typically, but only 4 or 5 where it stays foggy. Good night.
All the day's Premiership action in Match of the Day. That's next.
Because of this programme, some hospitals have cleaned up their act.
We haven't mocked a single toilet yet.
Because of this programme, the chances of surviving childbirth in one African country have increased.
She's 3 kilo 100.
Because of this programme, the Olympic movement was forced to tackle corruption in its ranks.
How many votes do you think you might be able to influence?
This programme is Panorama. Find out what happened after the credits rolled. Panorama, what happened next. Tomorrow, 10:15, BBC One.
Well, now tonight's lottery news. First, the Thunderball numbers. 10, 15, 16, 19 and 20. And the Thunderball, that was 7. Early indications show there are 2 winners of the top prize. In the main Lotto draw, the winning numbers are 2, 10, 11, 28, 36, 47, and the bonus number, that's 33. It looks like there are 6 lucky jackpot winners, each winning just over £815,000. And the Lotto extra numbers, 3, 12, 27, 28, 37 and 43. No winners tonight, so the jackpot for the next draw has grown to an estimated £4.1 million.